Bond Accountability Committee meeting. And I will start with introductions. I'm Kara Toronto. I'm the BAC chair. I've been on the committee since 2001. And I will hand it over to Norm to introduce himself.
Good evening. I think I've been on the committee for around 3 years now, and I just wanted to briefly just say, express my appreciation, particularly to Marina and all the OSM staff and the architects and contractors too, that have been working on these projects for the 6+ years. And it hasn't been without adversity with rising construction costs, COVID, supply chain issues, and
strike
persevered. And I just really appreciate that, being a lifelong Portlander and a product of Portland Public Schools. So, Greg?
Thanks, Norm. Greg DiLoretto. I think I've been on the committee for about 3 years too, and I think you said it quite well, Norm. They've had a lot of challenges they've worked through, and yeah, sorry to see you go, Marina. It's been working nice and smooth, and we've had an easy run of it. So now we might actually have to do something. So anyway, thanks.
Jonathan.
Hi, Jonathan Trutt. I've been on the committee roughly a year, and I have the same sentiments as Norm and Greg, so I don't really have much to add. It only to say in my own voice that it's really impressive the work that you all do.
I will fourth that. I just had a longer time period to process you all just received 3 minutes ago. Okay, Marina, do we have any public comment?
David says, no, we do not have any public comment.
All right, well, with that, I'll hand it over to you and your team.
All righty, thank you. I will ask my team to introduce themselves before they present. That'll make it easiest, and that's how people remember your names too. So we are going to go ahead here, the agenda. What we're going to be talking about tonight, we've already gone through the introductions and the public comment, and we'll do program administration updates. And then we are going to be focused tonight on 2020 bond measure, and in particular the capacity funds, and also the funds that we have set aside for infrastructure projects. And there's a number of different categories there. Then we have some time for discussion if we want to talk through anything that you heard tonight or other questions that you have. We'll definitely want to, I think, have a quick conversation about setting up meetings for next year, because we have not set those yet. So we'll make sure we touch on that at the end and plan to adjourn by 7:30. Okay, this one thing that we tell you every single time, we actually have even more to tell you about this time. So our business equity utilization data comes from a software system by the name of B2G now. It represents a point in time. It may not fully represent all of the actual payments that have been received by certified businesses, because the accuracy of the data really depends on a number of different things. That payment data comes from PeopleSoft, which is our financial system record for PPS. It's uploaded monthly. The data on payments to subcontractors is contingent on prime contractors or upper tier subs entering their data in. So it's self-reported. If they are late, they won't show up on time. We will continue to follow up. We're always following up with contractors and subcontractors regarding data that's in B2G. And we do want to note that because we do keep a pretty close eye on the data, we noticed fairly quickly that we had an issue with data as we were going to do reports. That issue reflected an issue that was occurring in PeopleSoft in our financial system that occurred back in August over the course of, I think, roughly 3 weeks. The issue has been resolved in PeopleSoft. It made some data integrity issues as far as what was reported over to B2G. We are going through and resolving those issues. We do have, we know what the issue is. So that's good. We're working through the resolution of it, but until we have updated data, we've given you the same numbers that we had in August. So I tried to put that on every single one of the reports where you will see that it is actually identical numbers as primarily the programs report, because we did not report on capacity and infrastructure and health and safety in August. You didn't get those breakdowns for those in August. You are getting the breakdowns now, but they're August data. So as soon as we go through the next round of reporting for each of our sets of projects, you'll get an updated equity data at that point. For now, just assume that the data probably does not reflect some of the substantial payments that were made over summer work. So the data comes in on August 1st. That was the data that we pulled from. Payment data lags by a month or two. Most of the summer work, as far as payments made to certified subcontractors, is probably not showing up. So I just want to kind of keep that in mind, that you're going to see, numbers hopefully change quite a bit when we do the next report out. Any questions about that? Avtar, who is our certified business program manager, is here tonight. If you had questions, he could give you mind-numbing detail about what exactly happened, but I can, okay. All right, so we will move on to the program report. And we will start by noting, of course, there's no update to the data on the equity. So there's no new news there. And this first page shows you budget information for 2012. Probably no surprise, there's no new news there either. We do continue to go through and clean things up. These numbers have actually changed since the last report, but not by very much. And as I said before, don't rely on the number that you see on the bottom as, hey, we still have $627,000. We may not. We're still going through and cleaning up all the different parts and pieces of the budget. One of the challenges we find in particular is that when we use funds that are not bond funds as an assist to our projects, those funds are constrained by fiscal year. eBuilder does not constrain by fiscal year, so we have to go and manually remove them. And so this is a large part of what we've been doing, is we've been trying to go through and clean out all the old stuff that looks like we have budget, but we don't actually have bond funds. So we will continue to do that. It will continue to take us quite a bit of time. Any questions on 2012? 2017, we are at 85% spent. If you've been tracking, that's exactly the same number that we did percentage-wise last time reported 3 months ago. The reason for that is that most of what we were spending with 2017 funds comes from the Benson project. Benson is split funded between 2017 and 2020. We have been utilizing 2020 funds for Benson to address arbitrage requirements for those bond sales. Once we meet arbitrage requirements, we can switch back and start using 2017 funds, but there's no rush. So you won't see a huge change in the dollar amounts. Percentage doesn't mean a ton when you're talking about $790 million. So just keep in mind, we are continuing to spend those funds. It just isn't going to look like very much from a percentage standpoint. And we're not very focused on trying to rush through the 2017 funds. As we move forward with, potentially our next bond sale for 2020, we'll have arbitrage requirements on that as well. So our focus again will be on trying to meet arbitrage requirements. McDaniel, we had been forecasting for a while that we had 2 million coming back, plus some change. We have pulled that 2 million back, so you'll see that all that is left that is potentially still coming back to us is a pretty small amount as we finished out some minor things. And that is helpful to know that we brought that 2 million back because the Board of Education requested that we use 2017 funds to address 2 projects related to athletic infrastructure. One of those is field and track replacement at Grant Bowl. So Grant Bowl has the football field. That field is not currently playable, or was not playable. I have to look and see where we are with the project. And the track needs replacement as well. That is one of the projects. The other project is track replacement for the track that Benson uses at Buckman Field. Those 2 athletics projects are going to come in roughly somewhat under the $2 million mark. At least that's the estimate at the moment. They're in progress right now. And we were conveniently taking that 2 million that came back from McDaniel, and we set it aside. You will see that in the very last line of the list under the 2017 program. You'll see something that says unalloc athletics. We took the 2 million, we put it into unallocated athletics. We are going to track it in the same way that we track the unallocated health and safety. We did already move funds from that unallocated bucket to the grant project, but it's not showing up here because we did it after the 1st of the month. So it did not show up in the data at the time that we pulled the report. You will see that the next time. The other thing that continues to grow would be the funds that we anticipate getting back from the Lincoln High School modernization. We're currently at 17.8 million at the forecast of what's coming back. We are going to be reviewing that with the Facilities and Operations Committee. We have it scheduled as an agenda item. There have been some changes to the scheduled meetings. Other things have been going on with that required board attention recently. So I believe the next meeting for Facilities and Operations is currently scheduled for December 6th. I don't know if the Lincoln savings will be one of the topics on that specific agenda. We should know more soon. We'll let you know. But they've asked that we tell them how much we have and provide a staff recommendation as to how that was spent. So our Chief Operating Officer, Dan Young, is working on that staff recommendation. I don't think we're going to see anything very exciting. We all know that we have a lot of capital needs that are truly infrastructure related needs. And I anticipate that's what we're going to see as a recommendation.
I guess the question for us would be, when you send that agenda item to the Facility and Operations Committee, can we get a copy of it so we know what's going to them?
Yes, we would love to do that. Yep.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah, happy to do that, and also to share the date and time of the meeting if you want to attend the meeting.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm. And health and safety funds, we continue to say we have some health and safety funds that we are going to be pulling back. We're starting to do that. It's a fairly lengthy process because we have so many projects to close out. In order to pull funds back, I require that all of the expenditures be in, all of the contracts be closed, that it's fully clean, shall we say, and then it's a manual process to pull those funds back. We're starting to do that. We'll start seeing more of those showing up. We've been saying for a while, we've committed the 158 million that was set aside for health and safety. That is committed to health and safety, to those categories that we had. So with that in mind, we've said, yes, we know roof replacements are a high need. that is definitely something that we want to look at as a priority. I have also been informed that we have several fire alarm panels that need to be replaced. Probably a couple $1 million worth of cost to that. So that is something else that we are going to be looking at. That fits very neatly into our health and safety categories of work to do. So as we hear of other things, if we have anything else, we'll certainly let you know that. At the moment, like I said, we're still kind of going through the logistics of pulling the money back. Let me think. We'll talk, I'll touch on Benson briefly when we get to 2020. Other than that, I think I've covered 2017. Do we have any other questions on 2017? Okay, and then we did share reports with you from 2017 health and safety categories that are still in progress. So you did receive reports for the paint, the lead paint. You did receive reports for water quality and asbestos mitigation. I think that's all we had left to send you for 2017, but you should have those in your files. And we're happy to answer questions on those too. And we're done with that. I will move to 2020. 2020, exciting numbers. We're 31% spent. Again, percentage doesn't seem like very much, but we spent 95 million in the last 3 months. It's a good chunk of change. Our summer is our busiest time. We had a number of projects that were going on. And I think, as we mentioned, when we reported in August, again, lag, you just don't see the full impact of the summer work. So we are moving along quite a bit. I shared with you in your materials a funding report for the infrastructure, for the 2020 infrastructure, similar to what we have shared for 2017 health and safety. That allows you to track where we are with each of the buckets of money that we have set aside. I was looking at the information today, and I try to remember what the numbers were, but we are actually pretty well encumbered of all of the funds that we had set aside for infrastructure. We have some encumbrances remaining for a couple key areas. You'll see those as we do the reports tonight, but it is primarily because we are doing phased projects across full district, and we have only contracted with some of the phases. We know the work is coming. The work is already being scoped or already being designed or has already been designed, but we may not have contracts in place yet, so the encumbrances aren't there yet. So that money is getting spent fairly quickly. We do, with some of those phase projects or programs, I guess you could say, with the costs that have gone up over the last 3 years, we've struggled quite a bit with inflation, as you know. We do anticipate that we will probably need to use some contingency funds from the program in order to complete all of the scope that we wanted to complete. So for projects that we are doing scope across multiple sites in the district, we want to be sure that we're equitable. We're not simply cutting it off and saying, okay, some of you schools don't get this particular scope because we don't have enough money to complete it. We do have contingency funds for those reasons. And so we are starting to look at what those costs might be. We're still kind of honing in on that. And I don't have numbers to share with you yet. When I do have numbers, I will share those. We are working on design and some additional cost estimating that should give us a much better sense of what we're looking at.
So you don't think you're going to need the 17 million from Lincoln to meet those increased construction costs as well as the contingency?
So I can't take the funds from 2017 and use them on things that were not in the 2017 bond measure.
Okay.
Okay, so there's some, we have to be somewhat clear in terms of utilizing the right funds for the things that they were approved to be used for. We go through, that is one of the things that we look at for compensability when we talk about compensability, and whether it's we can use bond funds and be compensable for that. That's one of those key items. The
So
other
the work-
piece of that is we try really, really hard not to split bond measures in
Mm.
funding a single project. And Benson is a great example
Why?
of why we don't like to do that. You can see the contortions we go through to try to report out on how much we spent for each bond measure when we have multiple bond measures in one project.
So Dan will be working on projects that fit within the 2017 bond measure to use that 18 or $17 million. Got
Exactly.
it. Okay.
Yep. And we do currently have 52.8 million in contingency funds. We are actually going to shortly be adding in our interest earnings from 2023, which I think we are at 6.8 million. I believe is the number that's going to come in from interest earnings. Just as a clarification, those are interest earnings on short-term investments of the bond funds, the bond proceeds. So when you sell the bond, we get a lot of money back. Banks do not allow us to put all of that money in the bank. So we have to go and turn around and take that money that we are not using immediately and move it into investments. We have folks at the district who do that investing, follow the investments, they follow our cash requirements, and we do our best to get interest, and that interest comes back to the bond program. So hopefully we'll have those interest earnings in the next report, and I will make sure to note them in the budget notes like I typically do. Modernizations are not going to be presenting tonight, as I mentioned before. So just kind of a quick little rundown on modernization. We are moving forward with planning for Cleveland High School modernization, A.W. Wells High School modernization. Those two projects are moving along sort of neck and neck. They're really on the same timeline at the moment. As you know, we only have funds for planning the design. We do not have funds for construction. At this point, that'll have to come from a future bond measure. A minute. Sorry, it's my dog's dinner time. So I'm going to try to keep her from letting everybody know that. We are moving those projects forward. Eric Girding, who you know from the Lincoln High School Modernization Project, is the senior project manager for the Cleveland modernization. We have brought on a new senior project manager for I.W. Wells, Donna. You will meet her at the next BAC meeting. Eric and Donna are working together, and they are essentially moving both his projects together kind of at the same time so that Eric can get Donna up to speed and trained on all things PPS. Donna comes with a ton of experience though, so I think she's going to be up and running pretty quickly. And when we get to the design part of the work, the two projects will split off.
Have you picked the design? He says here the design teams. So you've picked the consulting, the architectural, the firms that are doing the projects or not?
Yes, architectural firms have been contracted with for, you will see if you look in the encumbrances, the additional encumbered under progress
Right.
for Cleveland and I.W. Wells, you'll see what looks like a fairly small amount that is planning only. So once we get through the planning phase, we get a comprehensive plan. That comprehensive plan has been approved by the board. Then the design team comes back to tell us how much it will cost to fully design that comprehensive plan. But because everything is up in the air when you first start out, you can't
Mhm.
really ask them to give you a price.
Right.
So that encumbrance is just for the planning. When we get to a completed comprehensive plan, we'll look at encumbering the rest of it.
Who are the firms you selected? Do you know? Oh, you don't know.
Bora is, I'm gonna get these wrong. Bora is the firm that is doing.
Wells.
Ivy
Well,
Wells. Thank you, David. Do you want to step in on Cleveland?
And Cleveland is Malum Architects.
Okay,
Thank you.
all right. Thank you, David.
Mhm.
And we'll have more information on that next time. So there'll be new reports for you next time. We'll add those to our list. Just a quick note, CBSE, again, no funds have been spent at this point. One of the things about compensability is that if you don't know what you're spending the money on as far as what the asset is going to be, it's not compensable. So until those decisions are made, we won't be spending any funds. I do know that they are looking at potential options. I hope to have some more clarity soon, and then we can move forward with expenditures and reports. The Benson and MPG are both on schedule. They're both at the moment staying in the budget that they have. We continue to say that it is going to be tight. We did already provide some additional contingency funds for MPG. We reported on that last time. Benson, we're kind of neck and neck there, waiting to see how things shake out. And I am, I'm tight-fisted. I'm reluctant to simply give them more money until we absolutely have to. So, as soon as we have to, you'll know, but we don't have to yet. The schedule is also very tight, and so we're continuing to watch that as well.
Marina, the recent teacher strike had no effect on any of those projects, correct?
I think it. We did have some picketing that occurred at the Benson construction site. We did have some construction trades folks who opted to walk out. I believe we lost 2 trades for a day. And then after that, we saw individual folks leaving for a couple hours at a time. That we have not heard that there has been a specific impact, but I don't know that we wouldn't necessarily know that yet, given that the strike just ended.
Marina, in that vein, it may not be like, I know it's only a few days into the summer and a week of winter break. Does that have any impact on any of the projects that are planned?
Those are good questions. What we're hearing right now is that it's not going to impact as far as the winter break is concerned. We don't anticipate that that's going to be an impact to our work. Anything that cuts into the time that we have available in the summer is always going to make it harder for us. Now, being able to put any kind of cost to that impact is hard to do at this point. I will say that we are not planning to do any roof replacements next summer. We are doing mechanical replacement projects that are going to extend into the school year anyway. So my hope is that we're not going to see quite as much of an impact as we would have if we had projects that were truly constrained to summer work. I think the bulk of what we're going to see are projects that are already doing work during the school year anyway. So fingers crossed. And last but not least, Jefferson, certainly there's been a lot of conversation. We've seen a lot of things in the media. There is still quite a bit of internal conversation. I don't have any additional to report out on that. What I do want to say, though, is that we have received and reconciled cost estimates recently with completion of the revised SD phase. And the prognosis is not good. So we knew that we would have a lot of challenges based on the amount that we had to value engineer out. The process of going through and actually getting those funds figured out, getting the dollar amounts set to what we could take off the budget or off the cost. We, at this point, we're confident that we can make up half of what we needed. We have another third of that we think is potentially viable. I'm not going to, sugarcoat it too much. And then we have 2/3 of that we have some really big ideas that would have significant impacts. And they're probably impacts that would not be considered acceptable. So we're having a lot of conversations. This is all relatively new information that we are starting to process through. We're still getting some cost information. This has all been within the last week. But again, in the interest of transparency, I do want to be clear that we knew we had an uphill battle. We're still fighting our way uphill. We haven't stopped. We have not stopped at the value engineering. We have not stopped working through the details of what those changes might be in terms of bringing our costs down, but we're not there yet.
When you get there, I assume you'll be sharing it with the operations or facility, whatever the school board thing is. I guess I hope we can be kept in the loop and get it at the same time so we can see it as well.
Yes, we are absolutely going to do our best to keep you as in the same loop that they are kept in. As I said, at this point, there are no decisions that have been made.
Right.
Mhm.
There's a lot of conversation that's happening internally.
The issue of where they'll go during construction hasn't been settled yet, right? I mean,
No, it
it was
hasn't.
settled, but it hasn't. Okay, yeah.
Marina, when we met in August, my memory is that you were saying that there are two kind of grounding assumptions that are really drivers here. One is that landmarks won't let anything happen to the existing building, that it has to be preserved. And then there was the choice, I think, well, not the choice, but maybe a policy of the level of seismic improvement. And I don't remember exactly what the language is, but I remember it was going to be like a category 4 kind of building as we anticipate a major earthquake. And I'm just wondering, maybe this isn't something you can speak to, but are either of those two core drivers up for discussion?
Those are great questions. So the seismic level, we've already gone ahead and reduced our requirements on that.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
That was a key component of being able to reduce the cost.
Mhm.
There are some constraints with the 1909 building, which is the oldest of the buildings, the one that we are looking to keep in the current design, that we would not be able to reach the highest level of seismic anyway.
Right.
We physically could not get there. So we already made that change as part of the value engineering. What the Landmarks Commission is willing to allow or not allow, we don't know. And I think what we were trying to say is that it's a risk. We have not gone forward to the Landmarks Commission asking them for approval to demolish that building.
Yeah.
We could, certainly. nothing is stopping anyone from making that request. There is a risk involved in it because it is part of a historic district.
Mhm.
It is considered a contributing building. And I think I can't speak for the Landmarks Commission, but I can tell you generally what I've seen from them is that they are going to prioritize keeping historic contributing buildings. So we think there's a pretty high risk there.
Yeah.
We don't know
Well,
how long the conversation would take,
Yeah.
and we don't know where it would go.
I'm realizing an assumption and that underlies my question, which is that if you could demolish the existing building, there would be more opportunity to phase the project, like say Lincoln, where there's a replacement school and built, and so the existing students don't have to go whatever it is, 11 miles out to Marshall. But I don't. Is there anything to that assumption of mine, or is that moving too fast and assuming too much?
We have definitely looked at multiple options, and some of them new construction would allow phasing, some of them new construction would not allow phasing.
Okay.
It's really a mix. So at this point, I think the conversation is, what is the schedule impact? And what is the cost impact? And what is it that the district wants to do to move forward? And I don't have those answers. I'm not a sole decision maker. I know that's hard to believe, but there are a number of folks in the district, including our superintendent, our board of education, who are going to be making those decisions. So
Yeah. Thank you. That's really helpful. Appreciate it.
okay. Other questions about 2020? Anything before we move on to the infrastructure? I think actually capacity is first. Right. This is just the big number at the bottom, or at this point, it's the top of the page. You've seen that. I don't think there's anything we need to discuss on that.
Actually, Marina, can I interrupt you for one question on the bond? And it's more like the design. This is my first time being on the committee. So like to get Cleveland and Wells into the modernization process, like how does that bond come about for the next voter cycle? And is that something that we're looking at in 2024?
Well, it'd be great if we had our chief operating officer.
Okay, I can
tonight.
pause on that. I can pause on that. I was just
Yeah.
curious, like thinking about it from a next step perspective.
Big picture is that the board will have multiple working sessions to review potential configurations of a future bond. There's a lot of work that goes into it in terms of staff time to prepare information and data about what our needs are and what it's going to take to satisfy those needs, to help with prioritizing different types of things. Then there are lots of other folks who have particular interests that they would like to see on the bond. That will come into play as well. There's usually a fairly lengthy list. And then all of that has to get run through the financials, right? The really short version of that is we have to balance taxation rate with our payments, our interest payments on the loans, right, for the bonds, and what our general fund can accommodate in making those interest payments, right? So it's a complex financial calculation that we give to the experts and ask them to come up with a bunch of different scenarios. So our board members will review all these different potential options. They'll look at probably a menu of different things. They'll be looking at how big a bond measure can be based on those financials. There will be a number of working sessions. They will all be public meetings. There will be formal sessions. I have no doubt that there will be a significant amount of community engagement coming up as well. And what I'm hearing is that 2024 is currently the goal, as has been discussed for a long time. But, you know, the financials can play into that too, because the financials can limit how much we're able to put out there and what we can achieve depending on the timing. So was that enough hand waving to get you to the next
As
time?
much as I needed to know for
Okay.
tonight. Perfect,
All right.
thank you.
Okay. And we are going to move on to capacity. We have Damon here tonight. And I'm hoping Damon is going to pop on camera and off of mute.
There. How's that?
We can see you and hear you.
All right. Good.
Damon, you've got the first page, which is just the report, and then we'll go to your slides after that. So let me know when to go to the next slide.
Gotta make it bigger. All right. See it now. And so we are about 30% through the budget, and our first phase of this is relates to that. It's one wing, first wing. And so we're on task, we're on schedule. The strike is going to create a little bit of swap over pain for us because they're going an extra week into Christmas break. We're working through that with the principal, and we think we got a plan. We've got a plan B and a plan C because we have to do it at Christmas break. But we're on target for that, and we just got to doing the teacher move and student move at Christmas break is right now became our hurdle. We'll be setting mechanical units Monday the 18th, and from there we connect everything. We've got everything worked out. PGE, got everything signed with them. I'll run through legal department and all taken care of in the easement. And so that was actually, I delivered that to PGE yesterday. So everything's on target there. Budget wise, we're on target. Schedule wise, we're on target. We've got to hit this turnover at Christmas break. It's a big pivotal point is Christmas break. So anyway, unless we had any questions, we could move on.
Yeah, you say a budget where everything's okay, but in our little boxes we have a red X under budget. So what does that mean? And I mean, granted these projects weren't originally considered, but what's the
red X is a holdover, Greg, from that we did provide substantial additional funds for Harrison Park. I'm always sort of torn as to whether we get to, once we put the money in, do we get to move it back to green?
I mean, I would think so, because the money was approved by somebody, right?
Yeah.
I mean, it was approved, which means it's now planned, right?
Yeah, it is. It's now planned. We did not anticipate putting additional funds into the project, but we have done it now. I'm happy to move that to an as planned for future reports, unless of course Damon goes over budget.
Right. I mean, yeah, because I think when we look at it, when we see that there's an impact, it tells us there's a problem and that we ought to be aware of it. But there's not a problem anymore because
Please
You
find
didn't
it.
go over one time, right? It's planned now that this is what you're going to do, and the board approved it. And so, yeah, I would move it back unless we've got an issue that the BC ought to be concerned about.
Does anyone else from any of our other BAC members have a different thought? I'm happy to move it back. I want to be fully transparent.
Yeah, I agree with Greg. It's been funded. It's fine.
Okay. Happy to make that change. We did provide a lot of information in the notes. So I think what we could maybe do now is go through some of the slides, and Damon can tell you what you're looking at.
And to give you a quick overview of what this project is, it is, I'd call it mini modernization with the students still in the school. And so it's been fantastic working with the principal. She's been awesome. We work a lot with her, almost 2 or 3 times a week. We meet to just make sure that they're getting what they need, and we can access, and we continue working, because it's the only way we can hit budget, hit schedule, is just working together to get it done. Because we are full mechanical. It's a whole new power electric. It's every classroom's getting new teaching walls, audio visual, full technology upgrade. And what I'm putting together is a before and after. I think those are what really show the drastic change. This building's 1949, this wing you're looking at right here. It's corridor. So anyway, it gets obviously a new everything. We did all the abatement, all the demo, and now to go back in, that'll get a new ceiling, obviously. But that's where you're mechanical. It's all electric. New everything from the street power all the way to the room grills. We've also closed off any outside air, which also in those old buildings, those access for critters getting in the buildings, they come through those low vents in the rooms. So yeah, bathrooms. It's impressive. We've turned over one room early on because it was on one correct side of the firewall, and everybody wanted the room. So it's been met with a lot of happiness. I'll be honest with you. It's quite a drastic change. So we'll have both DOAS and VRF units for the building. Everything's both run electrical. This you're looking at a classroom. This is our mock-up classroom that we brought out about a week and a half ago. We brought out our IT department, the Otis group, had them make sure they like what they're seeing. The teaching wall there with the projector, the whiteboards and tack board. The ceiling grid is left open on purpose right now while we're going through commissioning. So this wing, when we turn it over, which is going to have a sprinkler system, which you can see in the picture, that sprinkler system will be live. We're setting it up to where it can be sectioned off. As we go through the building, we'll gradually increase each section to be live. And so when the teachers do move in this winter break, everything's fully functional. The HVAC system, the fire sprinkler system, and the rooms are finished. All new finishes from floor to ceiling. And if anybody's familiar with that building, those floors of those classrooms had over 2 inches of belly, slope, sag, whatever you want to call it. They're in pretty bad shape. So we've leveled all the classroom floors. We're leveled the bathroom floors. And then what we have in the classrooms now is you see in that pictures is the marmoleum going down on top of the leveling product. The hallways will be polished concrete, and at the doorway that'll be cleaned up, and that'll have a threshold. And then throughout, like other buildings in PPS, we will polish the existing concrete floor. That was the meeting day with Otis group out there. And it's great. Mock-up rooms are the best because you can get, it's a real in-person situation. It's as-built basically in person. And we did get a few comments, good comments. We made adjustments per Otis, and we're off and running. Almost all the rooms now are whiteboards are up, projectors are up. Final inspections on commissioning before we close up the ceiling. But most all the rooms in that first 1949 wing they look like this now.
And that is all we have for slides.
Marina, I'm gonna ask a question and it is totally splitting hairs, but I feel like I've earned that right. Like that's what we do on the BAC. With the technology upgrades, Damon, is that coming out of the 2020 technology budget? Like, is that in line with the rest of the tech upgrades throughout the rest of the district, or is that just specific to this program? Does my question make sense?
Yeah, I think you're asking if we're using part of the technology budget or not. Yes.
Correct.
Yes.
And you are. Okay.
Yep.
Thank you.
Yep.
We did, with Harrison Park, we did pull in multiple streams, if you will, to include the work that we would have been doing anyway. So ADA, SPED work, technology work, security work, mechanical work, and then the capacity funds.
And then is that also reflected simultaneously in technology, SPED, capacity? Okay.
Yep.
And I feel like I'm learning. Like, look, wow, how far have I come?
It is on those reports. You'll see Harrison Park on each of those reports that come out. And what I try to do is I try to identify the funding that's coming specifically from that pot of money for Harrison Park on that report, so you can start to see that. You can also see it by going to the 2020 infrastructure funding allocation report, because that is by fund source, and the fund sources are split, so that you can see what's ADA, what's SPED, what's etc. Okay. Right. Okay, so we are going to thank you, Damon. We are going to move on to Ellen, who is going to do ADA and then SPED.
Hi. How are you? Sorry, I have two screens up because I have notes on one of them. So I'll start with our ADA, all of our projects in ADA. The first one is the signage. The signage is mostly installed. I've probably got 5 in the back of my car that I need to get on the wall. We did have some issues with the contracted signage person completing the work, i.e. patching and painting walls. So I have somebody working on talking to one of our painting contractors under contract to get those wall repairs done, but that should be done by the end of January, mid-February. Hardware upgrades. We have replaced the hardware at every door in the district with a lever that locks from the inside that is not hazardous material. There are about 200 doors at 35 sites that need to be replaced. We've ordered the doors for, I believe, 5 sites and expect to begin replacing those doors with all new hardware mid-January. And we'll stagger through those and have all of those done by the beginning of the next school year. I have 4 construction packages in construction right now. There are 38 sites. At the moment, we are cautious about schedule because we've lost that first week of winter break, when people hope to get a lot of work done on site. They are working throughout the week when students aren't in the building, and they were able to make up some time over November. We're also a little cautious on certainly package 1A, because because there were extra permit requirements from the city. The city's requiring us to put in our PBA, so premises isolation for the water supply, that we have to do at, I believe, 5 sites in package 1 site in package 1B, and 1 site in package 1C. So those may run a little long. We are working on the next 40 sites for the second group of schools. They are currently in design development. I should have cost estimates for design development on the 12th of December. And I anticipate those coming in higher than we initially anticipated when we were putting together our budget for this.
And those are one of the programs that we're waiting to get some more information, so we know what the contingency ask is likely to be. So one of those that I mentioned earlier.
Our first 4 packages came in significantly over our anticipated cost. So we're kind of expecting the next 4 to come in over as well.
So that's why the box is yellow under budget then, right?
Yes.
Yes.
Sir.
Okay.
Yeah, that is an anticipatory yellow. Yeah.
And you said something that caused me to think. So you had the schools empty for what, over a month? Were you able to go into the schools and take advantage of the fact that for over a month the students and the teachers were out of the schools, or were you prevented from being in those schools as well?
No, we were able to go into the school, but we needed to be cautious with how invasive the work we were doing was, because anytime the students and the staff could be back in the building. So they really planned very, very carefully, like, okay, what can we get done in 2 days? But they couldn't, like, for example, we have to put a lift in at Richmond Elementary School that goes from one level to another. And they really couldn't risk getting that started and then have people back in the building. And that's one of the things that not having that extra 5 days or over the winter break is probably going to have an impact on, because I don't know that they can do it in those 4 days between Christmas and New Year. Number one, because it might take longer. And number two is a lot of people don't work that week. So it's really hard. That's our biggest challenge at this point, is like finding people to work and getting it scheduled. So we haven't set the schedule for those yet. We're working on that right now.
And then we'll go ahead and move on to the SPED.
SPED while we're here, yeah.
Yeah.
So the SPED, part of the ADA upgrades includes SPED lighting replacement. So that's part of that ADA work, just because it's all construction related. So we just piled it in there. The other part of the SPED work that I'm doing is providing new furniture for all of the SPED classrooms. And we started installing a pilot project last spring that we then did surveys and got feedback from the faculty. And we started installing the approved pieces in August. And I believe I have 7 groups that are in the phase 1 schools. So the TSI, CSI schools. And we have done 4 of those 7 groups. We have a big push over the winter break, which, even though it's shorter now, I think that we can still get it all done. I believe it's like 20 classrooms we're installing. And then we'll do another group in January around what would have been an in-service day, but I think we can do it after hours. And then we have another big push, another big group install over spring break. And we anticipate, and then we'll do the rest of the sites that are going to be under construction for phase 2. We'll get all of those installed, the bulk of those installed before school starts in August of 24, with maybe a few stragglers interspersed throughout the rest of the calendar year. So we are on schedule for that one. And I believe under budget. Fingers crossed. I shouldn't have said that out loud.
it is the reality that there are unknowns out there.
And the teachers that I've spoken to are very, very pleased with what they have. So that's nice.
Questions about SPED? Okay, thank you, Ellen.
Thank you.
Okay, we are going to move to security. And Eric, are you available?
I am. Give me 3 seconds. My 9-year-old just got back home from baseball practice and he's locked out. I need to go let him in real quick. Sorry, literally perfect time.
No worries.
Sorry.
I'm sure you all had other questions about ADA. We're in a brave new world.
So in the 2020, all that, the ADA and the SPED was adequately funded to do all the schools that need it? Is that?
No, that's what we were saying, is that we've done 4 of 8 projects, right? I think that's the best way to put it. We have 2 phases of work for the installation or the construction for the ADA. Each phase has 4 groups in it of different sites. We've done the first phase, or at least we're in the process of doing the first phase. We've contracted it out. We know what those costs are. The costs are more than we anticipated on each of the contracts for those 4 groups. We have not contracted out the next phase, which is another 4 groups. They're still working through the design. They're getting ready to complete DD on that set. And once they complete DD, we'll get another set of cost estimates, and we'll have a little closer to cost certainty about what those costs might be for the construction for that second phase. But we are anticipating, if the first phase was more than we had budgeted, the second phase is probably going to be more as well. And so we are expecting that it will be more than the funds that we currently have available for the ADA, which is where we think we're going to need program contingency.
Yeah,
And
I think
that's the point of contingency.
we were talking earlier about the future bond measure, and I remember, when you look at everything that needs to be done throughout the district, with all that's being done with, with infrastructure, with health and safety, there's still plenty of work.
There is still plenty of work. And I think, when we talk about ADA, for example, the work that was funded this time was to ensure main level accessibility. So basically ensuring access to the main level of every school in the district. We have schools that have more than one level, many of them. And so if we want to get to a point where we ensure access to all levels, that's a whole different set of numbers. When we're talking about installing elevators, which is what that means in most of those schools, that's another big ask that's coming as far as bond funds and bond measures. That's just on accessibility. Eric, looks like you are here. Would you like to go ahead and get started? Why don't you introduce yourself?
Yeah, thanks for the fill, Marina. Eric Nays, project manager. So yeah, I'm working on the 2020 security project right now. We are currently underway for phase 1, which consists of 15 schools. And we are currently under construction at 2, and we are mobilizing the 3rd school next Monday. So that's encouraging. Lucky for us, the first 3 schools are the largest, and they are all high schools. So we are kind of working through some of the kinks up front, which would help ease into the little smoother construction for the smaller schools towards the end of the project for phase 1. So that'll be nice, getting everything worked out here. So I'm also in kind of a unique situation where budget wise, I feel we are very comfortable. And I think we are looking pretty good from the budget side of things as well. So that's encouraging. We've completed some all of our site walks for phase 2, which consists of the next 26 schools for design. And we should be receiving design documents next week, first set, and then hopefully get into construction documents shortly after. So we can get that out to the streets to bid for the phase 2 work as well. So schedule wise, I feel once we get past these first 3 high schools, it'll kind of really open up, and we'll have a better idea of kind of where things are and where we're looking at. But I still feel pretty optimistic meeting our schedule and our timeline for the work there for the security project.
So Eric, these 3 high schools, I assume, aren't the ones we just got done modernizing. Are we putting security into the ones that it's going to be a few years before we actually complete the modernization? I guess I don't recall where the high schools were that were putting security in.
Okay, yeah, we are at Jefferson.
Okay.
And we are at Cleveland.
Okay,
and
so
then we'll be at Marshall. Yep.
Okay, right.
Yeah.
So schools we're not going to modernize or won't get to for a while. What about Ida B. Wells?
That is on the list. That is a phase 2 school, so that'll happen. Yeah, down the road here, later next year.
Got it. Okay, thanks.
Yeah.
So you mentioned your budget's looking good. Back on that earlier sheet, it was budgeted at 27, projected to only spend 9, so 18 million underrun. Is that correct?
It
Well,
does what hasn't been allocated yet for those future sites. So what you're not seeing is we're doing calculations behind the scenes of forecasting what we think we're going to have to spend to complete the scope across all of the sites. But what you see is only what's been allocated to projects. We need to get those projects set up in eBuilder and start allocating the funds to them. And we're not ready to do that because we're still working through the design.
Yeah, I think in other similar circumstances, don't you put unallocated and showing it being spent?
Yes, all of the unallocated shows it's being spent. We anticipate we will spend all of our funds.
Right. But I'm saying in other budgets like this, you'd have a line item that says unallocated and then shows the funding being spent rather than showing.
Then that is my mistake. You are so correct. I am just looking at this
Now,
now.
one thing-
Thank you, Norm.
Got you.
You got me.
Okay,
I'll fix it on the next one.
not a big deal.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay.
Any other questions other than my errors? All right. Thank you, Eric. And we are going to move to Robert, I believe.
Yeah, I just have to figure out how to unmute and go to video. Yes, I'm Robert Joel. I'm one of the project managers in the Consolidated Group, working with Steve Simonson. I have been involved in the past couple of seismic problems. That was a slip of the tongue. Seismic projects. We finished up Lent about 1.5 years ago, which was really good. Great team there. As far as the administrative team, we did change over to a new principal towards the end. Creative Science, we also have finished that project. We're in closeout. We got just a little bit of odds and ends to do before we're done, and those contracts will expire at the end of the month. And as of last night's board meeting, we are moving into the design for the Marysville seismic upgrade. Budgets overall we've been fairly lucky. We've managed to maintain without any additional funds, and our overall schedule. Trying to get these projects done in the short summer timeframes that we have has been very trying. We have been lucky in some respects that we've been able to do some odds administering the Christmas breaks and the spring break. That pretty much sums up the seismic. Are there any questions? No questions? I like that. And yes, Marina, I'm still at the office.
I was assuming that you already got the lights to go back on. Yeah. Unbeknownst to the BAC members, one of the times that I tried to do the meeting from the office in the evening, I was sitting in my office hosting the meeting, and the lights automatically went off. And I could not get up from my seat to walk out to where the light switches were 40 or 50 feet away because I was hosting. So I continued on in the dark. And fortunately, nobody said anything, but I did get a couple comments later that it was awfully odd lighting, the reflection from my screen. Okay, let's move on to roof.
Thing. So Steve Simonson, Senior Project Manager, Consolidated Group. We're working with Robert and our other PMs. On the roofs, this past summer was a very busy summer. We had multiple roofs going on all over the district, from the historic Dunaway Phase 2, replacing some of the clay tile roof and balustrade, Glencoe roof replacement, Richmond, even all the way up to Skyline, way up in far northwest Portland. Overall, this summer went really well. There's a few roofs that are going into a second phase. That's the West Sylvan re-roof, and I believe part of a single roof at Vernon are going to be a second phase next summer. All of the rest of these ones that were in white did complete on time this summer. We're just kind of working through final punch items on the roofs. It gets a little hard to do the punch, get punches complete on these projects as the school year rolls around, because they're working after hours, and every day those hours get shorter and shorter. We did definitely catch a break with the teacher strike. That did help our roof teams out. They were able to work on most of the schools, completing punch items and getting things wrapped up while the strike was going on. We didn't really have any issues with that. As far as our budget, as you can see, most of these roof projects, we this summer, our bids were definitely high this summer. I think we were seeing kind of what we expected from inflation and overall higher cost standpoint. But I think with help from our design teams, getting the projects bid a little bit earlier and having a little bit more time to really do deep, good dives into the designs and vet details. We had overall fewer change orders on the projects this summer than in previous summers. And so as you can see, we've got quite a bit of funds that are going to be coming back to fund future roof projects. We're working on trying to reallocate all of this money out of these projects to a future, at least one, if not two roofs that likely the design will start in this coming spring, and the construction would be summer 2025.
So I noticed we have the red box for budget again, but we just heard that it looks like we're doing pretty good and we got money coming back in that we can reallocate. So what is the impact occurring that caused the red box?
You can blame me for that. It was really to say that those costs that have come in have been significantly higher than we budgeted. So again, in the interest of transparency, our budgets for these projects were lower. When the bids came in, they were substantially higher than our budgets. What that means when we're talking about a bucket of funds is that we aren't able to complete as much as we wanted to complete. Now, we didn't have any set number that we specifically said this is how much we're going to do, because of course roof replacements, we're not, every roof is different, right? So it really depends on what has to be prioritized by condition. We don't necessarily know at the start of the bond that we're going to do exactly this number of roofs. So it's not like we're not doing what we said we would do, but I do want to be clear. We've had cost impacts and they have been significant. And the significance of how much over those bids came in from budget for this summer alone, that was at least a whole nother roof, if not two, right? So that's where there's a little bit of gray area. There's a little bit of squish, like, I can say these are the reasons why we would, the data reasons why we would do red versus yellow, but really this is about me trying to tell you, hey, there's been an impact to the program as far as costs are concerned.
And I appreciate that. I mean, I think that's part of our responsibility here is to know those kinds of things. And so that's why I ask if there's something we should be aware of that we need to let the school board know about. So thank you. Yeah.
Yeah. I was going to ask Steve, actually, kind of on the same topic there. Looks like the average re-roof might be 5 million or so. In this market, how many qualified roofing contractors are there that would respond to a request for proposal?
That's definitely the more difficult things that we see in the roofing projects and in some of our other fields. There are it's a very small pool. Generally on our roofing projects, we have, I would say, 2 to 3 general contractors in the last year or two that have been bidding on these. And I think we've had 2, maybe 3 roofing subcontractors submitting bids to those general contractors. It's a very small pool. And that definitely has an effect on our bids, and it has an effect. It wasn't as significant this summer, but last summer, summer 2022, we definitely saw issues with some of the roofing subcontractors, I think, biting off too much more than they could chew. And you'd hear from one contractor, the roofer said that they would have 3 guys here today and they only have 1, or they said they'd have 5 guys here today and they have 3. So it's a small pool, and that is a difficulty in this market.
And we have challenging projects because we have time constraints. It's not just about weather. We have hard constraints with the start of school. They can't come in before school ends. They can't be doing noisy work when school is in session. They can't be doing smelly work when school is in session, right? These are things that make for they make the pool of willing contractors much smaller. If you're a contractor, do you want the tough situation, or do you want to go to a project that's not going to be quite as difficult if you have issues with supply, anything like that might cause your schedule to move down? They'd rather go someplace where they don't have to have the impacts. So, I mean, just we're kind of unique in what we're asking of our contractors, and that definitely narrows the pool.
Yeah, that doesn't surprise me at all.
I'm going to go ahead and move us to mechanical. And Steve, that's you too, right?
Yes, I'll be taking that one. So on our mechanical projects, currently on the radar is the Bridger, Kelly, and Lent mechanical upgrades, as well as the mechanical upgrades at Harrison Park. Damon already covered covered what they're doing at Harrison Park. What we will be taking on at Bridger, Kelly, and Lent, it's a very similar picture. Full mechanical upgrades at those schools starting this coming summer 2024. All three of those projects are currently under contract with mechanical contractors acting as prime. We have one contractor that was the successful bidder for Kelly and Bridger, and a different contractor on Lent. As you can see, these are all pretty expensive projects. They're very, Marina talked about the difficulty of the roof projects. It's even more so with these mechanicals. The contractors are going to be going into these spaces, tearing open the ceilings, demoing all of the existing mechanical systems, which includes a lot of asbestos abatement, and then trying to get everything put back together as quickly as possible before the students come back. The one saving grace that we really have on all three of these is that a lot of the work, a lot of the worst and most difficult work is in the corridors. We're not affecting the classrooms as heavily. So, at Bridger and Kelly, for example, it's most of the work in the corridors. Once we get those opened, things should move pretty quickly. Our contractor on those two schools and on Lent, we're really deep in the planning and working through phasing plans, laydown plans, how they're going to really attack these projects right now, and hoping to have some more information to present to senior leadership on kind of what the schools can expect for what they're going to see when they come back in the fall, because the biggest thing is that we are still going to be working in these schools through the fall. These are not projects that you can fully complete in one summer. And the hard thing with the mechanical system is that once you start demoing it, you're in it, and you're stuck until you get it complete. It's not as easy as some of the seismics where we can just cut off a wing and do all of the seismic upgrades in that one wing and then put it aside and done, because of how interconnected everything is. You also see on here the controls upgrades. That's part of another part of the mechanical upgrades with the district. We're doing full mechanical controls upgrades. This first phase is using a ESCO contract with Ameresco to do upgrades on the control system at 9 sites. And we're currently looking at what it'll take to do those upgrades at all of the rest of the schools in the district. This is kind of driven by, as you can see, the overall cost with Bridger, Kelly, and Lent, and Harrison Park for mechanical, it's quite high, and there's no way that we can do these kind of upgrades at every site in the district. So doing these controls upgrades is going to be a really efficient way to spend a lot of bond money throughout the entire district, and get a lot of improvement both in our energy and hopefully in comfort of staff and students by improving the control systems. And then, as you can see for schedule, like I said, with Bridger, Kelly, and Lent, those are all in planning right now. We're working through procurement of long lead items. That's certainly a cause for concern between Robert and I for some of the electrical switchgear on these are, 50 to 60 week lead times. And so that will certainly affect how we can start up the systems. We're hoping that we'll be able to start on some of the isolate off the boiler rooms in sometime in May and start construction in the boiler rooms. But we'll have to work through exactly what those plans look like with each school and with leadership. For the controls upgrades, those are currently in design at the 9 sites, and they will be starting construction on those sometime in the late spring. These will be kind of similar in scope to the fire alarm upgrades that took place a few years ago. If any of you remember those, where it's a lot of low voltage electrical work to replace the aging pneumatic controls, and this will bring full digital control to all of the sites.
Okay,
Questions?
more information than you could have possibly knew you needed. That is the end of what we have for presentation. I think we do want to talk about meetings for next year. Typically what we do is we try to set that up after this one. We wait until November, December, and then we send out a little, we have standard dates that inevitably have a conflict, which is to say, November is always a conflict because our standard date always puts us at the Wednesday right before Thanksgiving. So we always end up moving that. But I think what we'll try to do is we'll put together those dates, we'll send them to you, and we'll probably try to get your feedback. If you already know that there are dates you cannot make it, let us know. If we see that a majority of you cannot make it for a date, we'll try to reschedule it to something else. We try to give our chair preference. So if the chair is not available for a date, we will definitely try to find a different one that works. So I'll hopefully get those out to you sometime in the next couple of weeks. And we'll see if we can't get that figured out before the holidays hit us and you'll get busy. We have not scheduled any special presentations in quite a while. It seems like we've had so much to go over at our meetings. I would like to suggest that we have Avtar, who is our Certified Business Program Manager, do a presentation for us on the work he's been doing since he started. He's actually doing a significant amount of work. We'd love to update you on what he's been doing, what's kind of new to us, what is just expanded. It's nice to have somebody dedicated to doing this work. So I will be talking with him, and if you are interested in that, then we will plan to schedule that for an upcoming meeting. I'm also open to other topics. If there are other things that you're interested in hearing from us on, if you have things right now, you can tell us now. If you have things that you think about later, please share them with, I'd say, with the entire BAC group later. And we can talk through how we might be able to get your information.
Along those lines, I was reading the audits and the progress that we're making. So it seems to me we should have a presentation on the project, the things that aren't done yet in the audit work that you folks have been working on. You got a lot of them done, so it's, they're completed. We don't need to hear about that, but there's some you're still working on that might be good to hear about.
Okay.
The other thing is, I don't know what success Dan's had with populating our committee. We seem to be about 4 of us that are kind of regulars. And if one of us doesn't make it, then we don't have a quorum anymore. And I don't know where we go with that, but it does concern me that we don't seem to get our full complement. I think we have, what, 7 people that are, and I don't even know if any of us are need to reapply or can reapply, because I know there's a term limit on a number of years you can be on the committee, but at least I'm a little concerned about that.
I will go and check everybody's, it sounds terrible, everybody's expiration dates. Don't take that the wrong way. I'll go check it. There are limits. I believe it's 8 years. I don't think any of you are there yet. But everybody has a different expiration or limit to their current term. So I'll go look at those and just make sure. I don't think we have anybody coming up, but it's a good reminder to go and look at that. And then I think I can speak for Dan that is, while he knows that this needs to happen, he has had other things on his plate. And he keeps saying, oh yeah, I need to get back to that. And I keep trying to remind him, but I'll remind him again.
Do we need to reach out to the other 3 members and find out why they're not coming? Are they not?
We don't have another 3 members. They are officially no longer
So there's just the 4 of us then. We're at
5.
5. There's one. Okay.
There's Ryan.
We're really happy that Ryan and Jonathan joined us. We do need more members, I agree. And it is a process we need to go through again and try to get more folks on the committee.
Yeah, I think you need to double the pay. That might help.
Yes, absolutely agree with that. Anything else tonight before we let you sign off?
I just want to say thanks to everybody with the Office of School Modernization. You continue to navigate huge challenges. Nowhere in any of our reports have we ever referenced a teacher strike. So thank you for continuing to stick with it. And Marina, I would just like to say again, it is delightful to work with you.
Thank you. It's delightful to work with all of you. Appreciate your time and your commitment. Okay. All right. Thank you, everyone. Have a good night.
You too.
Thanks,
Thank
y'all.
you. Good night.
Good night.